Welcome to Bookcast, where we unpack bestsellers in minutes.
Yeah.
Today we're diving into Margaret Atwood's
Yeah.
The Handmaid's Tale, a book that's both a literary masterpiece and, as some critics say, the most chilling cautionary novel of the century.
Wow.
Ready to explore the world of Gilead.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a world that feels eerily relevant,
Yeah.
even decades after the book's publication.
Hmm.
Atwood plunges us into this dystopian society where women are stripped of their rights,
Right.
categorized by function,
Oh, wow.
and valued solely for their reproductive capabilities.
It's wild to think that this story, with its chilling parallels to Orwell's 1984,
Right?
was published back in the 80s.
Yeah.
We're going to follow Offord, our protagonist,
Yeah.
as she navigates this terrifying new reality, grappling with the loss of her former life while searching for any flicker of hope or rebellion.
Yeah.
What struck you the most about Offord's world?
I would say the level of control is just suffocating
Yeah.
from the moment we stepped into Offord's stark,
Yeah.
almost clinical room.
Uh-huh.
We're bombarded with details highlighting the systematic suppression of individuality.
Yeah, that description of the room really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they've meticulously removed anything that could offer beauty,
Right.
escape, or
Right.
even a means to self-harm.
Yeah,
Even the blank space where a chandelier once hung speaks volumes.
exactly. And it's not just the physical environment, it's the psychological manipulation, too.
Okay.
The color-coded clothing, for example,
All right.
isn't just about visual categorization.
Right.
It's about stripping women of their identities and reducing them to their assigned roles.
You're right. It's
Yeah.
like they've turned women into walking symbols,
Yeah.
erasing their individuality and replacing it with these stark functional labels. Red for the handmaids, blue for the wives,
Yeah,
green for the Marthas. It's so dehumanizing.
it is.
What do you think Atwood is trying to convey through this system?
I think it highlights the dangers of reducing individuals to mere functions within a society
Right.
by stripping women of their names, their clothes,
Wow.
and ultimately their control over their own bodies. Gilead demonstrates how easily power can be used to erase identity
Wow.
and enforce conformity.
It's a chilling thought. And this theme of control extends beyond the visual, doesn't it?
It does.
Even the language is manipulated in Gilead.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The way they use seemingly pious language to mask their cruelty is both clever and horrifying.
Yeah.
Phrases like, "Blessed be the fruit,"
Oh,
and "under his eye" take on sinister connotations,
Right.
demonstrating how easily religious rhetoric can be twisted to serve a totalitarian regime.
It sends shivers down my spine.
Right.
And speaking of sinister, the constant surveillance and fear in Gilead really get under your skin. You see in Offord's internal monologues,
Yeah.
her anxiety about the eyes, always watching. It's like Big Brother on steroids.
Yeah. And this atmosphere of fear is reinforced by the ever-present threat of violence.
Okay.
The Wall,
Yeah.
where they display the bodies of executed dissidents,
Wow.
serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of disobedience.
It's a constant reminder of the price of rebellion.
Yeah,
But even in this climate of fear, there are whispers of resistance.
there are.
The handmaids find subtle ways to communicate, sharing secrets during their walks or exchanging coded messages.
Yes.
Yeah,
Those small acts of rebellion,
right.
the whispered words, the hidden glances, become incredibly powerful in such an oppressive environment.
Yeah.
It shows that even in the face of overwhelming control, the human spirit can find ways to resist.
And one of the most powerful examples of this resistance comes from Moira,
Oh, yeah.
Offord's friend.
Mm-hmm.
She's fiercely independent
Right.
and refuses to be broken by the system.
Yes.
Her daring escape from the Red Center, the training center for handmaids,
Yeah.
is a testament to her courage and resilience.
Moira's escape becomes a symbol of hope for Offred,
Right.
a reminder that resistance is possible. However, the harsh realities of Gilead catch up to Moira too.
Right.
The book doesn't shy away from the brutal consequences of defiance in this world.
Definitely. We learn that Moira was captured
Yeah.
and sent to Jezebel's,
Right.
a secret brothel for the elite men of Gilead.
Yes.
It's a heartbreaking choice she has to make. Freedom in a gilded cage,
Yeah.
or the horrors of the colonies,
Right.
the forced labor camps.
It's a testament to her strength,
Right.
even if it means compromising her principles to survive. This constant push and pull between hope and despair is what makes The Handmaid's Tale so gripping.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And speaking of complex dynamics, we can't forget the unsettling relationship that develops between Offred and the commander,
Right.
the high-ranking official who has her assigned to his household.
Their interactions are fascinating.
Yeah.
The commander tries to connect with Offred on an intellectual and emotional level. Okay.
Inviting her to play Scrabble, offering her forbidden magazines.
But it's all within the twisted framework of Gilead, isn't it?
It is.
He's both a captor
Right?
and, in this bizarre way, a source of forbidden knowledge and human connection. It makes you question the nature of power and complicity in a system like this. What are your thoughts on the commander's motives? Is it genuine curiosity or just a twisted form of control?
That's the brilliance of Atwood's writing.
Yeah.
She doesn't offer easy answers.
Right.
It's left to the reader to grapple with those ambiguities, to consider the possibility that even within a figure like the commander, there might be flickers of humanity, however distorted.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of situations, human nature remains complex and often contradictory.
Yeah.
And we see this in Offred as well.
Right.
She's repulsed by the commander,
Yeah.
yet also drawn to him out of a desperate need for any kind of human connection.
Right. It raises so many questions about survival and the complexities of human relationships under duress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not a simple story of good versus evil.
Right.
Atwood forces us to confront the gray areas of morality and the difficult choices individuals face when trapped within an oppressive system.
Before we delve deeper into Offred's internal struggles,
Okay.
let's rewind a bit and revisit Moira's escape.
Yeah.
We know she's resourceful,
Right.
even managing to steal an ant's uniform for her getaway. But what exactly did she endure, and where did she end up?
We learned that Moira was captured
Right.
and faced a horrific choice.
Okay.
Jezebel's or the colonies.
Oh, wow.
Even at Jezebel, she demonstrates incredible resilience.
Yeah.
Clinging to her identity and manipulating the system to survive.
It's both inspiring and heartbreaking to see her spirit unbroken, even in the face of such exploitation.
Her story underlines the fact that even in a dystopian world, individuals find ways to carve out agency, even if it comes at a cost.
And speaking of costs, what about the psychological toll on Offred?
Yeah.
Does she find any solace or connection amid all this darkness?
She develops a risky relationship with Nick, the commander's driver.
Oh.
Their stolen moments offered glimpses of tenderness and human connection outside the suffocating confines of the ceremony.
Nick.
Yeah,
That relationship is a roller coaster.
it is.
But let's be honest. Every stolen glance, every whispered word is fraught with danger.
Yeah.
Anyone could be an eye, and the consequences of being caught are terrifying.
Right.
Speaking of terrifying, can we talk about the birthday ceremony?
Okay.
It's like they've turned childbirth into this bizarre public spectacle.
It's a chilling reminder of how Gilead has twisted even the most natural human experiences into something grotesque and controlling.
Right.
The handmaids are essentially reduced to vessels.
Yeah.
Their body is manipulated to serve the state's reproductive needs. And that ritual, with its chanting and forced participation, highlights the desperation for healthy children in this dystopian world.
The propaganda is another public spectacle, but this time it's a mass execution disguised as a day of Thanksgiving.
Right.
It descends into this horrifying display of cruelty and violence, with the handmaids forced to participate in stoning a man to death.
Yeah.
It's just gut-wrenching.
It's a pivotal moment in the book,
Yeah.
showcasing the depths of Gilead's brutality.
Right.
However, cracks begin to show.
Okay.
Offred learns from the new Ofglin, another handmaid assigned to walk with her,
Right.
that the executed man was a political dissident. One of ours.
Wait, one of ours?
Hmm.
Does that suggest a resistance movement operating within Gilead?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The new Ofglin whispers, Mayday to Offred,
Uh-huh.
a cryptic message hinting at a network of resistance.
Okay.
A flicker of hope that the fight for freedom hasn't been entirely extinguished.
And that's where Atwood leaves us,
Right.
on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to Offred?
Mm-hmm.
What is Mayday?
Yeah.
And is it powerful enough to challenge Gilead's iron grip? I guess we'll have to wait for part 2 to find out.
It's a brilliant ending that leaves you wanting more.
Yeah.
Forcing you to think about the implications of this world and the potential for hope,
Right.
even in the face of overwhelming oppression.
And on that note, we'll wrap up part 1 of our deep dive into Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale.
Okay.
We've unpacked the oppressive atmosphere of Gilead, the subtle forms of resistance,
Right.
and the complex characters who navigate this terrifying reality.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve deeper into the themes of memory, identity, and the power of storytelling.
We'll also explore the book's ending.
Okay.
And its chilling relevance to our own world.
Oh, wow.
Until then, keep those pages turning.
All right, sounds good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into The Handmaid's Tale. Before the break, we were discussing the cliffhanger ending of the first part of the book.
Right, we were left with that cryptic Mayday.
Yeah.
And the possibility of a resistance movement. It makes you wonder how Gilead even came to be in the first place.
Right.
Did Atwood give us any clues about that?
She does.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most unsettling aspects of the book.
Okay.
Atwood doesn't just present a dystopian present.
Right.
She weaves in these fragmented memories of the past,
Mm-hmm.
showing us how Gilead emerged from what we might recognize as our own society.
It's like watching a slow-motion train wreck, right?
Yeah.
You see these seemingly small changes, censorship restrictions on women's rights, the rise of religious extremism.
Right.
And it's only in hindsight that you realize how quickly things can unravel.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's a cautionary tale about how easily freedoms can be eroded when we fail to recognize and resist the early warning signs.
Right.
Atwood draws these parallels to real-world events and ideologies, making us question our own assumptions and confront the potential for tyranny, even in societies that consider themselves civilized.
And one of the things that makes Gilead so disturbing is how they twist language and religion to justify their oppression. Right. It's like they've created this perverse version of Christianity, where women are valued solely for their biological function.
Yeah.
And any form of individuality or dissent is considered a sin. I mean, they claim they're protecting women by taking away their freedom.
It's a classic tactic of totalitarian regimes to distort language, to manipulate truth to fit their agenda.
Right.
In Gilead, they've weaponized religion, twisting scripture to justify their oppressive practices. They've created a system where fear and obedience are the cornerstones of society.
It's scary how easily religious fervor can be exploited and twisted into a tool of oppression.
Absolutely. It's a warning we should all heed, especially in a world where religious extremism is on the rise.
Now let's circle back to the ending of the book. It's such an ambiguous scene with Offred being taken away by men in a black van. We don't know if it's the eyes, the resistance, or something else entirely. It's a total cliffhanger.
It is.
Does Atwood offer any resolution in the epilogue?
The epilogue is set hundreds of years in the future.
Oh, wow.
We're introduced to scholars studying Gilead as a historical artifact, trying to piece together what happened. They're like archaeologists of a lost civilization sifting through the ruins of this oppressive regime.
So we don't get a definitive answer about Offred's fate.
No, but the epilogue raises fascinating questions about the nature of history, the power of storytelling, and the enduring struggle for freedom.
Okay.
It makes you think about the importance of remembering the past, of learning from the mistakes of previous generations so we don't repeat them.
It also underscores the importance of individual stories like Offred's in preserving the memory of those who resist it.
Yeah.
Even in the face of overwhelming power, her diary, which is how the story is framed, becomes a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, voices can emerge to challenge the dominant narrative. And that act of bearing witness, of telling your story, can be a powerful form of resistance.
Okay, so we've talked about the oppressive atmosphere of Gilead, the subtle forms of resistance, and the ambiguous ending.
Right.
For those who haven't read the book, can you explain how Atwood uses Offred's diary to tell the story?
It's a brilliant framing device that adds another layer of complexity. We're reading Offred's account of events filtered through her own subjective experience and the limitations of her memory.
Right.
We're left to wonder how reliable her narration is, how much has been shaped by trauma and the need to survive.
It's like we're piecing together a puzzle, trying to separate fact from fiction to understand the true story behind Offred's words.
And that's what makes The Handmaid's Tale so compelling.
Right.
It's not just a dystopian novel, it's a story about memory identity and the power of language.
Speaking of identity, one of the most disturbing aspects of Gilead is how they strip women of their names, replacing them with these generic titles like Offred or of Glenn.
It's a deliberate act of dehumanization, erasing their individual identities and reducing them to their reproductive function. The fact that Offred clings to her real name and memories of her past life highlights her strength and resistance.
It's almost like she's holding on to those fragments of her former self as a way to defy the system's attempts to erase her completely.
Exactly. She refuses to let them fully define her.
We also see this theme of control and manipulation in the way Gilead exploits women.
Yep.
You mentioned Jezebel's earlier, the secret brothel for the elite men of Gilead.
Right.
It's such a stark example of the hypocrisy at the heart of this regime. They preach about piety and morality, but behind closed doors, they engage in all sorts of depravity.
And the women forced to work at Jezebel's have no choice.
Right.
It's just another way Gilead exploits and abuses women while hiding behind a facade of religious righteousness.
It's so ironic.
Yeah.
They claim to be protecting women, but in reality, they're controlling and using them for their own purposes.
That's the message Atwood wants us to take away from The Handmaid's Tale. Power corrupts, and religious extremism can be just as dangerous as any other form of tyranny.
It's a powerful message, and one that feels incredibly relevant in today's world.
Absolutely. The book reminds us that we must be vigilant in defending our freedoms and our humanity. We must be aware of the subtle ways in which power can be used to manipulate and control.
So what can we do to prevent a Gilead-like scenario from happening in our own world? It's easy to feel powerless in the face of such challenges.
I think the first step is awareness. We need to recognize the warning signs, the erosion of civil liberties, the rise of intolerance and extremism, the manipulation of language and information. And we need to be willing to speak out to resist those who would seek to divide and control us.
The Handmaid's Tale shows us that even small acts of resistance can make a difference. Offred's stolen moments with Nick, her conversations with Ofglin, her refusal to completely surrender her identity, these are all forms of rebellion against a system that seeks to crush the human spirit.
Exactly. History is not inevitable. We have the power to shape our own future, but only if we are willing to stand up for what we believe in, to fight for the rights of all people, and to never give up hope, even in the darkest of times.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I wanted to touch on the book's adaptation into a popular TV series.
Okay.
It sparked a lot of conversation about the story's relevance to contemporary issues.
The TV adaptation expands on the book's narrative, exploring the origins of Gilead in more detail and showing us the ongoing struggle for freedom years after Offred's story ends.
It sounds like it's worth checking out, especially if you're interested in seeing how Atwood's powerful message continues to resonate in today's world.
Absolutely. The series brings a visual dimension to the story, but the book remains the source, and it's a must-read for anyone who wants to understand the complexities of this dystopian world.
Well said. And on that note, we'll pause our deep dive into The Handmaid's Tale. In Part 3, we'll wrap up our discussion by reflecting on the book's lasting impact and explore what we can learn from Offred's journey.
We'll also consider the book's relevance to contemporary issues and discuss what it means to resist in a world that's increasingly complex and challenging. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Bookcast, where we devour bestsellers in minutes.
Yeah.
We're wrapping up our deep dive into Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. We've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
from the oppressive world of Gilead
Right.
to the subtle acts of resistance and those haunting unanswered questions about Offred's fate.
It's remarkable how a book written decades ago can feel so urgent and relevant today.
Right.
Atwood's genius lies in her ability to tap into universal fears about control, oppression, and the loss of individual freedom.
That's what really struck me, too.
Yeah.
The Handmaid's Tale isn't just a dystopian thriller.
Right.
It's a reflection of the human condition, the potential for darkness that exists within us all.
Precisely. And what makes the book even more thought-provoking is that it doesn't offer any easy answers.
Yeah.
It's not a simple story of good versus evil. It forces us to confront the complexities of human nature, the gray areas of morality,
Right.
and the ways in which even good intentions can be twisted to serve harmful ends.
It definitely makes you question your own values,
Yeah.
your own beliefs about right and wrong.
Right.
I found myself feeling sympathy for some of the characters, even those who are complicit in Gilead's system.
Yeah.
They're trapped too,
Right.
just in different ways.
Exactly. And that's what makes the book so unsettling and so brilliant.
Right.
It challenges us to consider the choices we might make under such extreme circumstances,
Yeah.
to confront the possibility that we might not always be the heroes of our own stories.
It really makes you think about how easily we can become desensitized to injustice, how subtly our freedoms can be chipped away.
Right.
It's like that saying,
Yeah.
the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing.
And that's the message that resonates so strongly in The Handmaid's Tale.
Right.
We can't afford to be passive observers.
Right.
We have a responsibility to be aware, to be engaged, and to challenge injustice wherever we see it.
It's a call to action, a reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping the world we want to live in. So as we wrap up this deep dive, What are some key takeaways you think our listeners should hold on to?
I think the most important takeaway is that freedom is fragile.
Okay.
It needs to be constantly guarded and defended.
Hmm.
And it's not just about political freedom.
Right.
It's about the freedom to think, to speak, to love, to be who you truly are.
Yeah.
It's about the freedom to choose your own destiny.
And that's what The Handmaid's Tale reminds us.
Yeah.
We can never take those freedoms for granted. We need to be active participants in shaping our society, holding our leaders accountable, and ensuring the rights of all individuals are protected.
Absolutely. And I think another crucial takeaway is the power of individual stories.
Right.
Offred's narrative, her voice, serves as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, even in the face of unimaginable oppression.
It shows us that even small acts of resistance, like sharing your story, clinging to your identity, or finding connection with others, can make a difference.
Exactly. Those acts of defiance, however small they may seem, are essential in challenging oppressive systems and keeping hope alive.
So if you haven't read The Handmaid's Tale yet, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It's a challenging but incredibly rewarding experience, and it will definitely leave you with a lot to think about.
And if you're looking for a starting point to understanding the book's key themes and characters, hopefully this deep dive has been helpful.
Well said.
Yeah.
And that wraps up this episode of Bookcast Bestsellers in Minutes.
All right.
Until next time, happy reading.